Good morning. Well, for some of you, after it's afternoon for me. It is still morning for my friend Priya, who is Central Time Zone. Um, just to give you a little bit of context of what we're doing here, as many of you may or may not know, we lost a good friend of ours in December, going into the new year. And Our friend Matthew Bellis was a rabbi and an educator, and took a great perspective on challenging his students every morning through their morning announcements of asking good questions, learning something new, and being kind. To sort of maintain his legacy and his memory and to put some good stuff out into the world, I started to prevail upon friends and colleagues to get on and talk about it a little bit. So this is our first one. My friend Priya, when I put out the announcement, I was not surprised that she readily jumped in. So Priya, why don't you tell everyone quickly, like, who you are, what you do, and then we'll sort of get into the meat of this.
Okay, thanks, Michael. I'm so happy to be here. Like when you just shared that intro, I was like, oh, I feel so special to be part of this and to be the first one. Um, so I'm Priya Nalkur. My pronouns are she and her. I am the president of the Roundtable Institute. We are a leadership development firm, and we do coaching and workshops and keynotes. I'm also the author of Stumbling Towards Inclusion, which just came out last year. I'm a mom of two kids. My daughter is 13 and my son is 11, and I live in Austin, Texas by way of Canada, where I was born and raised.
Thank you. And you're a coach as well.
I am a coach, yes.
And I think that probably this falls into the wheelhouse of for those of us who are coaches. So for you, what is a, we'll start with the sort of the first of the three. What in your mind is a good question that you ask others or that has been asked of you?
It's hard to nail down just one, of course, because we, or at least I am a coach because of the practice of asking and answering questions. It Questions allow us to explore, discover, reflect. And so sometimes you might ask me on a Monday, you might ask me the same question that you asked me on Friday, but it will have a different meaning because I will have made some growth or development or some improvement, or I'll just be in a certain condition that will have me interpret the question differently. I like questions that um, create equity, that bring people all, that kind of absolve power dynamics, that take away power. And one of my favorite questions around that is, what is the origin of your name?
Ah,
And
interesting.
everybody has a story about
Yeah,
it. And everybody has to sit and reflect and decide, like, which story do I want to tell about my name? And it takes away power. It brings equity into the room. It brings equality into the room because we get to know each other in a different way. And I can answer that question so many different ways depending on the audience, time, and condition. So I love that question.
that is a great question, and I will honestly say I'm probably going to steal it for some workshops that are coming up to get some people thinking and in the right frame of mind. So that's great. So that's our ask part. The learning part. What is something new that you have learned, or something that you are still hoping to learn?
Well, it's hoping to learn, which is where I think I sit in life, right? It's like, I don't think I've ever fully learned anything. There's always more to learn. There's no limit to learning. But one thing I'm really grappling with, and I think I'll frame it this way, Michael. It's a belief that I am dismantling actively this year. And in that dismantling is a lot of learning. And the belief is this: if you're not growing, you're dying. And the belief has had me continually improve and grow, and the kind of occupational hazard of constant growth and improvement is overworking and burnout. And another really like psychological hazard is if you're constantly growing and learning, you can lose the thread of being enough. And so this year, I'm learning to take growth for granted, understand that it is going to happen without my effort, without my conscious pressure to grow, and I'm going to coast instead, which is my word of the year for 2025. So there's learning and coasting for me. I have to break certain patterns that and beliefs that like growth is more, growth is bigger, growth is expansive, and maybe growth is less, maybe growth is slower, maybe growth is regressive even. So that's what I'm learning and grappling with right now.
And I love it. The I have a friend who um, I don't know if he came up with it or I said it, and he's like, "Where'd that come from?" I talk to many of my clients who are business owners, and I say, "Growth for the sake of growth is the mantra of a virus, right? A virus
Oof.
just wants to replicate, right? A virus just wants to replicate, has no purpose other than to replicate, right? So if we are just growing for the sake of growing, it's like a virus, right? So at some point,
Wow.
right, and that can be a sort of that can be a very challenging, uh, dynamic to get yourself into, where it's like the constant growth, constant improvement, and you lose you lose some perspective sometimes. So
That is so helpful as a metaphor, growth as a virus, like wow, or a cancer even, its purpose is to replicate almost unnecessarily, unproductively, and maybe even dangerously. So
yeah,
I really love that metaphor. Thanks.
well, you can steal that as well. So.
I will. Thank you.
And then the last part is the being kind part, right? The acting part. So how are you, whether end of the year going into 2025, however you want to start to think about it, how are you being kind to yourself, to your family, to your colleagues, to your community, however you would like to sort of interpret that?
Yeah, I love this because that I think ultimately we are coaches because we are proliferating kindness. That's how I sort of think about it, or love, right? That's what we do in our work to ourselves and to the world and to others. One way that I'm doing this towards myself is decentering work. And so that means that sometimes in the middle of the day, I'm going to do something that is not work related. So, for example, today I made black bean chili in the middle of the day, which is like, it brings me so much fulfillment. It's taking care of me, and it's not anything to do with work. It has nothing to do with my work. One way that I'm really committing to being kind to others is this Gottman concept of attunement, that whenever you give me any bid for a connection, I'm going to attune. I'm going to tune into you. I'm going to like pause whatever I'm doing because it's not as important as our connection, and I'm just going to be present with our tuning in to each other. And it's amazing how powerful that little thing is. Put the phone down, put the book down, walk away from the stove for just a moment so that you can tune in.
Yeah, I love that. I think it is we could all use a little bit more of that in the world these days. So,
Yeah.
so thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to sort of talk about this. Can you share with the folks who may be seeing this, what is 2025 aside from coasting, which I am really interested to see how well you are able to.
Everyone I've told is like, really, Priya Nalkur, you're gonna coast? No way. So I'm like, challenge accepted.
Yeah. So aside from learning how to coast a little bit, what's sort of a big goal for you for 2025?
Um, to let go. And there's a lot of, I hate the word control because I'm like just so averse and resistant. I'm like, oh, I'm not a control. I don't control things. But I realize like, oh, I am trying to control a lot. So letting go is, I know it's so cliche and like a lot of us start the year with this promise to let go, but it's such a challenge for me. It's such a challenge for me that I'm like, okay, let's see. if I can at least celebrate and recognize when I have let go, knowing that I'm still going to revert to some version of control and effort and pressure, but that when I can let go, I'm going to recognize myself for doing that.
Excellent. I love it. Great. I think it's a great goal, right? It's for you, it's for your family, it's for your kids, so it's benefits all the way around. So thank you again for spending just a few
Thank
minutes.
you. I wish I could ask you the same questions. These were great and like thoughtful and
Oh,
exploratory, and I wish we
yeah,
could do
it
go
is.
further. Yeah.
Yeah, I will tell you this is, in the midst of, as I'm sure you can appreciate, in the midst of like going through something that's challenging, like you have to figure out a way to come out the other side and make some good out of it. So,
I
so
really
my
appreciate how you're doing that.
yeah, so my attitude is like, this is not for me. This is not for, right. This is just to put, good stuff out into the universe, and to honor somebody who really did great work and was a great human being, and you know, just a way, my little bit of way of keeping that memory alive. So thank you, and I will, for those of you who may want to get in touch with Priya, when she will be tagged in this video when it gets dropped on LinkedIn and Facebook and wherever else. And again, thank you for your time, and I look forward to hearing about how well you are learning to coast, because
It's
that'll
my
be an
goal.
interesting adventure.
Yes, thank you so much.
All right, thank you.